I used to work security for a property management company. Nothing exciting, mostly checking that nobody had broken into empty office buildings, making sure sprinkler systems hadn't burst, that kind of thing. In the fall of 2019, I got assigned to a building that used to be a hospital. It had been closed for almost 6 years by then. The hospital shut down after a new, bigger facility opened across town, and everything inside, beds, equipment, even some filing cabinets, had just been left behind. Nobody wanted to pay to clear it out, so the building sat there, slowly rotting, waiting for a buyer who never came. My job was simple. Walk the perimeter twice a night, check that the doors were still locked, note anything unusual in the logbook. I'd done it 100 times at other properties. This was supposed to be the same. The first 2 weeks, nothing happened. I'd walk the ground floor, shine my flashlight down the long hallways, listen to my own footsteps echo off the tile, and go home. The building had that hospital smell that never fully goes away. Something between bleach and something underneath it you don't want to think about too hard. It was the 3rd week when I started hearing things on the 3rd floor. I want to be clear, I never went up there during my rounds. My job only covered the ground floor and the exterior. The upper floors were supposed to be sealed off, stairwells chained shut, elevators disabled at the breaker. But almost every night, right around 2 a.m., I'd hear something above me. Not footsteps exactly, more like something being dragged. Slow, deliberate, a few feet, then a pause. A few more feet, then another pause. I told myself it was pipe settling. Old buildings make noise. I'd worked enough of these properties to know that creaks and groans didn't necessarily mean anything. But the dragging sound didn't feel random. It felt like it had a rhythm, like it was going somewhere. About a month into the job, I finally asked my supervisor about the 3rd floor. He got quiet for a second, then told me, off the record, that the 3rd floor used to be the long-term care wing. Patients who weren't expected to leave. He said before the hospital closed, there'd been an incident up there. He wouldn't give me details, just said, "Don't go up there, and if you hear anything, finish your rounds and go home." That should have been enough for me. It wasn't. 2 nights later, I was on the ground floor when the dragging sound started again, except this time, it wasn't coming from above me. It was coming from the stairwell, the one that was supposed to be chain shut. I stood at the bottom of those stairs for what felt like 5 full minutes, just listening. The dragging stopped. Then, from somewhere above, I heard 3 slow knocks against metal, evenly spaced, deliberate. I left. I didn't finish my rounds that night. I just walked straight to my car and drove home, and I sat in my driveway for 20 minutes before I could make myself go inside. I want to tell you I quit after that. I didn't, not right away. I needed the paycheck, and I told myself I'd imagined it, that stress was getting to me. So I went back. The last night I worked there, I decided to prove to myself that there was a logical explanation. I brought bolt cutters. I told myself if I could just see the 3rd floor once, see that it was empty, see that the chains were still on the doors, see anything that made sense, I could stop letting my imagination run wild. The chain on the stairwell door was already cut. Not by me. It was lying in 2 pieces on the floor, and the rust on the broken ends told me it hadn't happened recently. It looked like it had been cut months, maybe years, before I ever started that job. I stood there with my own bolt cutters in my hand, staring at a chain that had already been cut by someone, or something else, and that was the moment I finally listened to every instinct telling me to leave. I quit the next morning. I called my supervisor and told him I wasn't coming back, and I didn't explain why. He didn't ask. About a year later, I ran into a former coworker who still worked for the same company. I asked, carefully, if anyone was still doing rounds at that hospital. He told me the property had finally been sold to a developer planning to tear it down completely and build apartments. He also told me something I haven't been able to shake since. During the demolition survey, contractors found the third-floor stairwell door propped open from the inside. Not broken open, propped, with a chair wedged under the handle, the way you'd hold a door open if you didn't want it to close behind you. The building's gone now. I've looked at the satellite photos. It's just an empty lot, waiting for construction to start. I still think about those 3 knocks sometimes. Slow, deliberate, like something was answering me back. When I was 23, my girlfriend and I were looking for our first place together, and rent in our city was brutal. So when we found a 3-bedroom house listed for almost half of what everything else was going for, we didn't ask a lot of questions. We probably should have. The house sat at the end of a quiet street, the kind with big old trees and sidewalks nobody used anymore. The landlord, an older man who managed a handful of properties around town, told us the previous tenants had moved out suddenly for a job relocation. That was the story. We didn't push for more. The first few weeks were normal. We unpacked, painted the kitchen, did all the boring things you do when you move into a new place. It wasn't until the 3rd week that things started feeling wrong. It started with the 2nd bedroom, the one we were using as storage until we figured out what to do with it. The door didn't have a working lock, but it also didn't have a working handle, so it mostly stayed shut on its own from the weight of the door. Except we kept finding it open, every single morning. At first, we blamed the house settling. Old houses shift, doors swing open on their own. That's not unusual. But then it started happening during the day, while we were both home. My girlfriend would be in the kitchen, I'd be in the living room, and we'd both hear that door creak open down the hall, slow, like someone pushing it carefully so it wouldn't make noise. We'd check. Every time, the room would be empty. Boxes exactly where we left them. Nothing moved. About 6 weeks in, my girlfriend woke me up in the middle of the night. She said she heard someone in that 2nd bedroom, not just the door, but footsteps, and what sounded like something being dragged across the floor. I checked. Nothing. Empty room, same as always. We started keeping the door propped shut with a chair, the same trick a lot of people use for doors that won't stay closed. For a while, it worked. The chair held. Then one morning, the chair was on the other side of the room. Not knocked over, placed, sitting upright against the far wall, like someone had picked it up and moved it out of the way. That was when we finally asked our landlord more questions. He was evasive at first, but eventually he told us the truth. The previous tenants hadn't relocated for a job. They'd broken their lease and left in the middle of the night, forfeiting their deposit, and refused to give him a reason. Before them, the tenant before that had done almost the exact same thing. We started digging on our own after that. Old newspaper archives, local history forums, anything we could find about the house. What we found was that decades earlier, the house had belonged to a family, and the 2nd bedroom had belonged to a teenage son who died in that room. The details were vague, old records, small town paper, nothing definitive, but enough to make our skin crawl. We gave notice within the week. I remember our last night in that house clearly. We'd already packed almost everything, and we were doing a final walkthrough to make sure we hadn't left anything behind. When I opened the door to the second bedroom one last time, it was completely empty, except for the chair. The same chair we'd used to prop the door shut. The one we'd already packed into the moving truck an hour earlier. Sitting in the middle of the room, facing the door, like it was waiting for us. We didn't go back in. We locked the front door, dropped the keys through the mail slot, and never spoke about that house again, until now. Every town has one, a mall that used to be the center of everything, and now sits half collapsed behind a chain link fence. Ours had been closed for 11 years by the time this happened. Most of the stores had been gutted, the power had been shut off since the closure, and the whole place was scheduled for demolition the following spring. My friend Derek and I used to sneak in through a gap in the fence behind the old loading dock, mostly just to take pictures for an urban exploration page we ran together. We'd done it a dozen times without any issues. Broken glass, water damage, graffiti. That was the extent of what we usually found. This particular night, we went in later than usual, close to midnight, because Derek wanted better lighting for a video he was filming. We made our way through the food court, past the dead escalators, toward the anchor store at the far end, the one that used to be a department store, now just an empty concrete shell with hanging wires and shattered display cases. That's when the lights came on. Not all of them, just a section near the old escalators, flickering on one row at a time, the way mall lighting used to sequence when the building opened each morning. We both froze. The power had been disconnected from that building for over a decade. There was no reason for a single bulb to work, let alone an entire section. Derek, being Derek, wanted to keep filming. I wanted to leave immediately. We compromised. We'd get a few more minutes of footage, staying close to our exit route the whole time. We heard music next. Faint, tinny, the kind of generic instrumental music that used to play over mall speakers. It was coming from somewhere near the food court we'd just walked through, meaning it was now behind us, between us and the exit. We didn't run, not yet. We told ourselves there had to be other explorers, someone playing a prank, a portable speaker left behind by kids messing around. We started heading back toward the loading dock, walking fast, flashlights sweeping every direction. The music stopped the second we came into view of the food court. All at once, mid-note, like someone had hit pause. The lights that had turned on near the escalators were still on. But now, more lights were coming on ahead of us too, store by store, one section at a time, moving in the same direction we were walking. Like something was keeping pace with us from just out of sight, turning the mall on around us as it went. We ran the rest of the way to the loading dock. I don't remember climbing back through the fence gap. I just remember being outside, in the parking lot, both of us breathing hard, staring back at a mall that was now, somehow, fully lit up along its entire east wing. Every light on. Every sign glowing. A building that had no power source, blazing like it was 2003 and the doors were about to open for business. We sat in Derek's car for almost 20 minutes before either of us said anything. When we finally looked back at the mall one more time before driving off, every single light was off again. Dark, silent, exactly like it had looked every other time we'd been there. We never went back. When the demolition crews finally tore the place down the following spring, local news covered it as a routine story. A dying mall, finally cleared for a new development. Nobody else mentioned the lights. Nobody else mentioned the music. But Derek and I know what we saw. And neither of us has been able to walk past an empty mall since without checking, just once, to see if any of the lights are on.